I would really say focus is the biggest piece of advice. And then as you focus, it's how do you leverage the time and talents of your teams?
This is the Safari. The Safari is a tour around the consumer, brand, and retailing industry. And we have the great privilege here at my company, Traub, to really be exposed to many of the great minds of the industry who are forming and shaping the future of many different parts of the consumer, brand, and retail world. And I felt it was quite interesting for us to be able to not only learn from all of those people as we do every day, but memorialize it into a podcast, which could then be shared with many of our friends and clients and you, obviously, the listener.
Hi, welcome back to the Safari. It's Kate Doerge, and today I talked to Jay Benson, CEO of Simon Pearce. Jay talks about working with the iconic American family-led company and how he is driving the business into the future. We discuss the importance of being an open leader and remaining focused no matter what crisis may arise. I hope you enjoy. Hi, well, welcome, Jay Benson. We have Jay Benson, Chief Executive Officer of Simon Pearce with us today. So welcome, Jay.
Thanks, Kate. How are you doing today?
I am great. Where are we finding you today on this end of November?
You're finding me in beautiful Queechee, Vermont. We have some of our first snowfall just came down. So when you think quintessential Simon Pearce, you think of the mill, and it's now the mill in wintertime. So I'm pretty blessed to be here.
I love it. Well, actually, today we are lighting the Christmas tree here in Rockefeller Center in New York. So this feels very appropriate considering I grew up with Simon Pearce holiday Christmas trees. So
everyone likes a tree. Our glass trees are increasingly popular, and it's been really fun on the design front as we've come out with new designs and have helped expand people into their forests, we like to say.
Expand into the forest, exactly. Well, I will have to get to what has been the biggest tree you all have ever created, because certainly in Rockefeller Center, I think it's one of their largest they've ever had. But anyways, well, Jay, I am thrilled to have you on board. Simon Pearce has been the iconic, American heritage brand, and certainly one our listeners know very well. But I don't think, many people know the backstory that I'm excited to hear from you. So I guess we want to start at the beginning, Jay. Tell us a little bit about, your background and certainly how long you've been at Simon Pearce, because you've seen a lot of transition and change. And so talk to us a little bit about you, first of all.
Yeah. So I came to the North Country to go to college, and I never left, and have somehow figured out how to keep my career up in mid-central Vermont and New Hampshire, and feel very fortunate to be here. I went back to business school, and like a lot of people in business school, I didn't know what I really wanted to do when I grew up. So I became a management consultant and enjoyed doing that for a number of years, and began getting settled and finding good small businesses to be a part of. I was actually a geographer and worked in the map industry for a series of companies that ultimately became TomTom, if you think of the personal navigation devices out there, and began to shape my career a little bit more towards finance and strategy. And I worked as a CFO with a few PE-backed companies, all the while commuting from Colorado to Vermont, or Vermont to Boston, or different places like that. And in the mid 2015, my family said, "You're way too much." And I was home trying to figure out what's next. And a mutual acquaintance linked me up with Simon. And at that point, not only is there Simon Pearce, but there's a separate company that one of Simon's sons runs called Andrew Pearce Bowles. Mm-hmm. And they were in a typical family dilemma where Andrew was tired of getting all of his advice from his father. And so I came in and was the middle person, so to speak, and started spending time with Andrew and Simon, and moved into a CFO role at Simon Pearce, and had the good fortune that the CEO decided to move on to a different career in a different industry. And I sort of slid into the position at that point in time. And it was a very different company 8 years ago. The company's been around for 50 years, so has a long history. It started in Ireland. Simon came over to the United States in the early 80s and set up shop in Vermont. And the company did a lot of expansion over its first 30 years. And I would say the next 10 years, it was pretty slow. The company stayed about the same size. It was coming out with some new designs, but it was also trying to figure out who it was as it moved, I'll say, into the omni-channel world. And so as I came into the company, we did a lot of things that I'll say from the business perspective sound pretty simple, as we looked at our product assortment and what was selling and wasn't selling, and used that to create some nice extensions. We looked at our retail footprint and where did we want our own retail presence, and where might we find wholesale partners to provide that sense of place around our product, and really began to develop the DTC side of our business further. And that's been where those three things have been where a lot of our focus has been over the last several years. Yeah,
I was going to ask about that, just in terms of, the factors that attribute to the growth and the success, and DTC certainly has been one of them. And in terms of, the retail stores, how many stores do you have currently?
Yeah, so Simon Pearce has 12 of our own company retail stores. 3 of those are what we call factory stores. So Simon likes to say, and yes, Virginia, there is a Simon Pearce. Simon likes to say the best place to sell glass is at a glass factory. And we make glass in our starting location was Quechee, Vermont. In the mill, which is, think of it as iconic Simon Pearce when you see the picture of the Vermont mill with the waterfall, and our restaurant that's cantilevered over there. Nearby, about 20 minutes away, is our largest production facility where we make both glass and all of our pottery is made. And then we have a production facility in Oakland, Maryland, which is in far western Maryland in the Deep Creek Lake area, almost near Morgantown, West Virginia. And all 3 of those locations have factory stores, which mean they have our full line of products, but we also sell our seconds there. And then we have 9 other retail stores, predominantly in the Northeast. But over the last 5 years, we've pushed a little more southward along the East Coast to Ardmore, Pennsylvania, Bethesda, Alexandria. That's a great place where our brand is known and where we have a lot of strong customers.
Yeah. Well, certainly I think about Simon Pearce and I think about my wedding registry. So I have to imagine that's a large component of your business is registry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sort of picture a triangle with tabletop on one corner, giftables on another corner, and home decor on the third corner. And those points overlap a little bit, but our gifting is a very strong part of our business, whether or not it's registry or housewarming or gifting to ourselves, right. Especially during the COVID period where we want to surround ourselves with beautiful things. Not only do we have a good registry business, but a lot of people tend to buy Simon Pearce for when they don't want to buy something off of a registry and they want to find a unique gift to bring to someone. So that brings us some business as well.
Yeah. And I was going to say, you talked about your seconds, but when I think of Simon Pearce, I love the fact that every piece does feel unique in and of itself. Go back to the seconds for a moment, because I think it's important for our listeners, because the craftsmanship is what Simon Pearce is all about.
Yeah, so let's just in general, what Simon Pearce is a sort of a scaled, handcrafted artisan business. Mm-hmm. And we have 60 glass blowers, we have 10 potters, and when you make things by hand, they're not exactly the same. I like to use the example that everyone likes to say, that every snowflake is different. And product can be more conforming or less conforming. There's some people that want all of their drinking glasses to line up and be the exact same height. And there's others that appreciate the wonkiness. So in my mind, a second is 100% functional. Yet it might not be 100% conforming. And so we have a lot of customers that all they do is buy seconds, and we have others that want firsts. And it sort of depends on your aesthetics and how you like to be. The challenge is, and from a business perspective, it costs the exact same amount to make a first or a second. Right. We don't try to make seconds. We do, and that's a great opportunity for our customers.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the beauty of it, I think, truly. And that's what makes Simon Pearce stand out. And speaking about your loyal customer base, because again, you really do have this loyal customer base that keeps coming back, whether it's for more trees or for more glassware or what have you. But how do you ensure this unique experience and engaging experience, both online and in store? Because you have both. And I think it's key for your customer.
Yeah. So two or three things. I mean, when I first came to the company, Simon would talk to me and the team about, he was tired of people coming up to him and saying, I don't like being the best kept secret. And so we've spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out how not to be the best kept secret. And that involves creating opportunities for people to see, feel, and touch the product. If you, and going back to that triangle, if your first experience with Simon Pearce is a wine glass, you might say, oh my goodness, this wine glass is so much heavier than all of my wine glasses. Yet, if you're a decor person and your first item is a tree, you're not necessarily thinking about the weight and the heft and the clarity. So we have, you start with beautiful design. And I think we have beautiful designs, both original designs that Simon did, and our current designer, who's been with us for over a decade, has just done a wonderful job coming up with new products that carry that same aesthetic. Unlike a lot of design companies too, a lot of our designs are around for a long time. We still sell one of the first glasses that Simon ever designed 50 years ago, and we still sell and make that glass because enough people want it to warrant keeping it in the line. Yet we also have newness, or every year we try to introduce a new tree or a new type of barware or a hurricane, as you look through that. So design is key, and we are a design-led company. I think number two is how you showcase that design, whether or not it's in our own store, whether or not it's in our partners. We have 500 wholesale doors, or whether or not it's online. So art direction, photography, and storytelling is really, really important. And we should come back to storytelling a little bit here in it as we keep going. And then the last thing is just, I think, also the resiliency of our product. Our product, while it's handcrafted and on the higher end, it's very durable. Whether or not it's a glass, when I first got Simon Pearce, before I was at the company, I would hand wash everything. And when I met Simon, he's like, why are you just putting that in the dishwasher? This is strong stuff. So I think you get a combination of design, the ability to experience the product, and the uniqueness of the product, and then the storytelling around it. But I think the storytelling is also really important. How our product is made, who makes our product, the fact that all of our product is handmade. A lot of the techniques are techniques that have been used for hundreds of years. And so we're not about mass production. We're about creating product that when you surround yourself, you feel like it's a very beautiful product, and I know how it was made, and I know where it was made. And some of the values that go into that, I think, are really important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, when you think about Simon Pearce and in terms of how you're engaging with your customer, but also your local communities and the artisans, I was reading about your philanthropic give back. And I think that's something, you talk about storytelling. I'd love to hear a little bit more about not only your give back, but how you're supporting the local communities and the artisans, because truly, as you said, the artisans are part of the brand.
Right. It certainly is. The artisan is part of the brand, and the family. And the family story is a very important part of the brand. So, which goes to our giving strategy. So Simon and Pia have 4 sons. One of their sons, tremendous snowboarder, was on the Olympic training team and had a traumatic brain injury training in the half pipe pre-Olympics a little bit over a decade ago. And his recovery has been quite amazing. There's a wonderful full-length HBO video called The Crash Reel that's about the accident and about his resiliency and recovery. And around that injury, Adam, who's another one of the sons, is now the executive director of Love Your Brain. And Love Your Brain is a not-for-profit that's specifically around using mindfulness to help TBI, both folks who have had a TBI and folks that care for people with a TBI. And his work has just been recognized. Actually, he was just named one of the 10 CNN Heroes of the Year, and is going up for an international award in early December in New York. So the fact that we make products, and every year we do a charity ornament where the proceeds of that ornament go for Love Your Brain, but we also give to other local organizations. And like most companies, we want to support our employees in the organizations. Yet we support those organizations through product, not through money. We love donating product, and so that product can be part of an auction or whatnot, because we think that tells our story a lot better than
just money in the pocket. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree. I love that. I mean, honestly, Love Your Brain. I think that's incredible. And congratulations to you all in terms of what you've been able to do and what an impact that makes. And that's real. I think so many brands out there, it's sort of smoke and mirrors and it's the obligatory give back, but truly that's a personal component and part of the brand.
Yeah, and this week and next week, and a lot of our stores are doing charity events where we'll give a percentage of sales to, and in these cases, the charity of the designation of the store. So we want to give the store managers the independence of saying what organizations are important to your community and how can we help support that. And it can really be a win-win because it can help bring people in to see our brand and experience our brand, but it can also give money back to organizations to help them do what they want to do.
That's fantastic. And then also you're just engaging your existing, not only customer base, but also your employees and showing them that you care enough about them and what they care about.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is critical. So, okay, talk to me a little bit about eco-friendly practices. I know that this is an important aspect of the artisanal manufacturing. So can you give us a little bit of insight in terms of how that works?
Yeah. So first of all, glass making is an energy intensive process. So let's acknowledge acknowledge that first. And part of why Simon Pearce is located here at Queechee and why that's our flagship location is when Simon moved the business from Ireland to the United States, he wanted to find a facility that he could put a hydro turbine in to generate electricity. And so one of the first things after buying this building, we actually own our own hydro turbine and our own dam on the Ottaquechee River and produce power from that. And because once electricity is liquid and melted, it is a conductor. So the way you keep it melted is by putting high voltage through that glass. So as we've done that, we realize that there's a lot of other ways that we can be better stewards of the environment and of the energy that we use. So in the last 5 years, we've leaned a lot more into solar. So we have 2 solar fields that generate about 2.3 megawatts of electricity. One is in Oakland, Maryland, that just went live last month, and one is at our facility in Windsor. We also look at our materials that we use, and we've recently have transitioned, for those of you that know the brand, from Simon Pearce Gray to a craft box. And that's very, very intentional because the gray box was coated and was printed overseas and got to us via containers, whereas the craft board is manufactured in the United States and the boxes are created in the United States, and the shipping costs are less to get that product to us. And so we continually to look at the ways that we can do things better. And I think telling that story is a very important part of who we are and a very important part of being a Vermont-based business, as well as showing that we care about the resources and how we move forward in using those resources.
Yeah, and just to point to that for those who have not visited the mill, and there is this restaurant you talked about, and I think that for our listeners, it's worth a trip up to Vermont. But tell us when did the restaurant come about, and what was the reasoning behind that? Because I think it is really interesting.
Well, again, going back to the foundational story of discovering the mill and moving into the mill is when Simon launched the company in the United States. He and his wife and 4 sons lived on the top floor of the mill. Glass blowing was in one basement. The hydro was in a basement below that. And we opened a store and we still had a lot of room. So why not create the experiential restaurant where folks can eat off of the pottery that's made in the building and drink out of the glass that's made there? And that was the genesis of the restaurant. And it's truly our one truly experiential location, right? Mm-hmm. You can see glass being made, you can eat off the glass or drink out of the glass, and you can purchase the glass all in one place. It happens to be a Wine Spectator Award-winning restaurant. It's one of the top 100 most romantic restaurants in the United States. So we have a wonderful chef, and it's a great experience that goes along with the Vermont ideal. You have our classic menu is Vermont cheddar cheese soup and some horseradish cod are the quintessential dishes of Simon Pearce.
Horseradish cod. Wow. Okay. That sounds delicious. So before we get into the future, let's talk a little bit of over the past years. We talked to all CEOs about what we've all been through. The obvious, COVID certainly threw us all for a loop. And for a company like Simon Pearce, that's about entertaining and, that experience, as you said, getting into the stores, the tactile feel. How did you navigate? Because I think there's some great learning lessons that I've heard from you, offline, that came from COVID and how you were able to pivot. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. First of all,
yeah,
it was hard. You went from 1 week, everything being normal, to 2 weeks later, having your restaurant shut, all your retail organization shut, trying to figure out what safe distancing was in a factory. You can't exactly, we're an extremely vertically integrated business, mm-hmm. right? We make our own furnaces. We make the benches that the glassblowers sit on. We create our own product. We package our own product. We have our own warehouses. So it's not like you can send the entire company off to work remotely.
Right.
The majority of our workers had to be there. And so we worked hard to figure out how to sustain ourselves, especially in those first few months. A lot of your wholesale orders just dried up because they were in the exact same position you were. Mm-hmm. It's one of the nice things is when a small company can pivot. We created a product over 3 weeks to support the work from home, and we came up with a Simon Pearce iPad or iPhone holder, and it was one of our prices. We are one of our best-selling products in 2020. We immediately went to a free shipping model in DTC. Simon Pearce historically and now currently is back. We do charge for shipping in our business, but we're trying to generate what revenue we could generate as we went through. And then we just tried to figure out how, as permissions opened up, that we could open more locations. We had never done takeout out of a restaurant before, so we figured out how to first do takeout. We had never done curbside pickup. We figured out how to do curbside, and then it went from stores being closed to doing curbside pickup to be doing shopping by appointment to be being back open. And some of those things are around to stay, and some of those things we just now have in our back pocket that we can turn back on. And I think it's also to the resiliency of the community and the resiliency of the employees, mm-hmm. in that we're a relatively large fish in a small ocean. And, our customers continued to support us, which was great. Our customers transitioned to buying online.
Yeah.
And that would really help grow our DTC business and make people understand that was when we first launched and sold seconds online. We used to think that people really wanted to see their seconds, and we started selling seconds online, and it worked out really well from that perspective.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And again, I think it's the silver linings, right, of COVID. We all have come out of with this greater knowledge of what works, what doesn't, and being able to pivot and be nimble. As you said, you're small enough company that you can do that.
There's nothing like a crisis to pull people together too.
Right.
And to say things that before you said, I can't do that, then, you come up with ways to do it. And so having an innovative team and collection of people that were willing to try new things is part of the challenge and part of the fun of being at a company like Simon Pearce, and I'm sure at a lot of other companies too.
And I think that is the key of being a leader of a company, especially during that time where nothing like a crisis to bring people together. But I read a quote that you had given at one point in terms of what does vulnerability look like for you as a leader, and talk about vulnerability. COVID is like as vulnerable as we can get. So tell me a little bit about that, because I loved your quote and what you said in terms of you only know what you know.
I think number one is knowing sometimes you don't know the answer. Yes. One of the most cathartic things that I did during the pandemic early on was I contacted a few professors over at Dartmouth Business School, Tuck, and said, there's got to be something that we can do, like a real-time case or anything like that. And what we ended up doing was just an open session once a week. And we had about 40 students. It was obviously all on Zoom because of the pandemic. And it would start with the professor asking me a few questions. What do you do this week? And it might be we were talking about the PPP program and my frustrations with the bank on getting something processed, or when do you decide to open up stores? And having that sort of sounding board and listening to the ideas of other minds and saying, well, have you thought about X, or vice versa? It was just a really good experience to say, we don't know. There's no play. We didn't have a playbook. There's not a defined way on how to you react. So how can you put your best self and put your team's best self forward? And so I'm so just thankful for our team at Simon Pearce and how they had the willingness to try new things. Our head of retail, what's a personal protection device, and how do we put up, glass screens to, all this sort of stuff that in the grand scheme of things, now we look back and say, oh, that wasn't a big deal. But trying to figure that stuff out in real time really was a big deal. And the truth of the matter is, however well we plan, there's always emergencies or crises. This July, unfortunately, we were hit by the bad flooding that happened in Vermont.
Right.
And our main facility was suddenly underwater. And how do you respond from that? And how do you shift employees around? And how do you deal with large quantities of whether or not it's glass or wine or whatnot, and recover? And seeing how the team responds and what they can do is part of the joys of being at the company for me.
That is incredible. And I think that goes back to your statement of crisis brings people together and that resilience. But what did you do after the flood? Because that was, you were right in it, literally right in it.
Yeah, no, we were right in it. When you're, actually I was looking out today because we're finally installing some flood prevention devices going forward. But it's still a small enough place that there was 20 people in the cellar of the building trying to bring equipment up before we were told to leave the building.
Wow.
But this is again where, the efforts, you bring in crews to start cleaning up, and we got our retail store open within 2 weeks. We got our restaurant back open within 3 weeks. It took about 6 weeks for the glass blowing floor. And how do you turn that into an opportunity? Meaning, what can you do differently to either make the operations better going forward or to prevent hazards in the future? And so I really respect what our team did to really recover from that and keep moving forward.
Yeah, about the pivot. Well, okay, so the past was the past. Talk to me about the future for Simon Pearce. Yeah. Future is bright, as I'm looking at the sunbeam hitting you on the face right now. The future in Vermont is very bright. But do you have any exciting projects on the future? Where do you see the business going?
I see the business to continue to slowly expand. We'd like to have a few more retail locations. So we believe in retail. We believe in omnichannel. We have some wonderful wholesale partners that tell the story well. We have some great retail stores on our own, and we think that there's a lot of room on DTC. I think a lot of it comes down to assortment. As you look at our products, how do we continue to add new products that excite our customers and attract new customers, yet stay true to the brand? So I think we'll continue to see some nice surprises there. How do we embrace who we are? I'd like to figure out how to have some products that embrace the environment further than we're currently doing, and we're working on a few ideas in that direction, and continue to not be the best kept secret. So if you are followers of Simon Pearce, I suspect you notice you get served a few more ads or a few more emails, and how do we do that in a judicial fashion? We don't do it just to make brand presence. We do it to find and attract and retain customers, and figuring out how to harness that. In today's day and age and workforce, you need to keep growing in order to be able to continue to pay your employees well and attract new employees. So growth is part of that picture.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And listen, eye on the ball, and certainly you as CEO and running the business and what you've been able to do and how you've been able to pivot. You're a leader, and those in your organization are following by your example. And so, I don't want to take too much more of your time up, because this has been really incredible. And Jay, as I said, I've been a major fan of the brand, and I know our listeners have been as well. So this has been really insightful. But in terms of advice, we've got a lot of CEOs out there and aspiring CEOs. What's your takeaway, other than being nimble and resilient as you have been, and not knowing what you know, and being open to what you don't know? What other advice can you give aspiring CEOs?
The first thing that I would say is focus. There are so many opportunities out there, and you need to figure out as an organization what to focus on. Yep. In a design-oriented company, that sometimes causes a lot of debate because everyone loves all the designs.
Yes.
Yet sometimes some designs aren't that commercially reasonable, or, at what point we often have the conversation of, how many different styles of hurricanes do you need? And how do you come up with a design that's so good that it trumps one of your existing designs? So growth does not necessarily mean SKU proliferation or hundreds of stores or anything of that matter. It's how can you leverage the people you have to make the best impact while honoring the integrity of the brand and the company and the people at it. That's the challenge. And I think we often all try to take on too much. I have a little plaque at my desk at home that says less is more. And I'm a firm believer in that because I think if you can focus and take care of I know it's old school to call it that, but the 80-20 rule or whatever the case, it's really helpful. And it's actually really helpful for the organization to keep everyone focused. So what we do as a management team is we try to say, what are our, it's classic strategic planning, but what are we really trying to accomplish this year, both on the number side, but also on what is a good new success and how do we get there? So I would really say focus is the biggest piece of advice. And then as you focus, it's how do you leverage the time and talents of your teams?
Yeah.
And where your team has the talent to go do something and do it well.
Yep. Well, I think you are very fortunate in that you have a very talented team, and, clearly with your leadership, you are going to continue to go very far. And my last question, because we are in the holiday season and these trees, I do want to ask, what was the biggest tree you have all made, and how big is that collection?
I mean, the tree collection, I think now is up to about 35 SKUs. Our largest tree we make is a 26-inch. And a 26-inch tree, if you imagine the weight and heft of that on the end of a glass blowing pole. I mean, some of our glass makers, what I don't think everyone realizes is not everyone can make every item.
Right.
So the more complex the piece or the heavier the piece, very, very few people can make. So the 26-inch tree, every year we try to do a special version. We've done some with silver leaf. We've done some with bubbles. But that is really the biggest tree. Now, the biggest collection of trees is we have an item called the Enchanted Forest, which is one of just about every single tree. I always think of it as, it's the type of gift that you would see on the inside cover of some of the old retailers that have been around for a long time.
Right.
And that's pretty exciting. And it's sort of, you ring a bell when you sell an Enchanted Forest because it takes 3 pallets to ship it to your house. So it's a lot of trees.
Well, that is a perfect way to end this because I hope all of our listeners out there go get your enchanted trees for this holiday. And Jay, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and can't wait to see the big things ahead for Simon Pearce. So
I really appreciate you spending the time with me, Kate. Thank you.
It's so good to see you today, Jay.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Traub, you can go to traub.io, where you'll learn a lot about everything that we do. If you're enjoying the safari, please do share it with your friends and colleagues within the industry. And please also don't forget to subscribe and like it. Until next time.